The transport ship carrying Ambassador Sarah Chen and her team emerged from faster-than-light travel near the Nexus. The massive space station hung in the void like a small moon, glittering with lights from 1,000 docking ports. Ships of every imaginable design came and went, representing dozens of alien species that called the Galactic Council home. Sarah stood at the observation window, her hands clasped behind her back. She was 42 years old with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. Behind her, 3 other diplomats reviewed their notes in silence. They all knew what was at stake. Humanity's first real introduction to galactic civilization would happen today. The Nexus docking master granted them permission to land. As their ship settled into Bay 47, Sarah took a deep breath. "Remember," she told her team, "we smile, we listen, and we show them only what they need to see." The station's interior was breathtaking. Corridors stretched for miles, filled with beings that looked like they came from fever dreams. Tall creatures with 4 arms bargained with floating jellyfish-like aliens. Robots walked beside organic beings covered in feathers or scales or things Sarah had no name for. 2 guards met them at the entrance to the council chamber. They were Kavros, 7 feet tall with dark red scales and yellow eyes that looked at the humans like insects. The larger one bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "The primitives have arrived," he said in a hissing voice. "Try not to embarrass yourselves." Sarah said nothing. She simply nodded politely and walked past them. The council chamber was enormous. 47 seats arranged in a circle, each one occupied by a representative from a different species. At the center was a raised platform where visitors could speak. The air smelled strange, a mixture of different atmospheres and technologies working to keep everyone alive in one shared space. High Prelate Tsar then of the Kavros Empire sat in the largest seat. His scales were darker than his guards, almost black, with scars running along his neck. He looked down at Sarah with barely hidden contempt. "So," his voice boomed across the chamber, "Earth finally joins us. How quaint." Sarah stepped onto the central platform. Her voice was calm and clear. "On behalf of humanity, I thank the Council for this opportunity. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with all civilized species." Laughter rippled through some of the seats. An insectoid being with multiple eyes clicked its mandibles. "Friendship? You barely understand quantum physics. What could you possibly offer us?" Sarah smiled. "We offer our uniqueness. Every species here has something special to contribute. We hope to learn from you and perhaps teach you something in return." "Teach us?" Zarthan leaned forward. "You travel at speeds we mastered 10,000 years ago. Your weapons are projectiles that would bounce off our shields. What could you possibly teach us?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "Restraint," the word hung in the air. Several council members shifted in their seats. "Restraint?" Zarthan laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Is that what you call weakness on your world?" "We call it wisdom," Sarah replied. "The choice to not do something even when you can is often the mark of true intelligence." Another council member spoke up, this one resembling a tall bird with silver feathers. "Enough philosophy. As per council law, all new members must demonstrate their military capabilities. We must assess whether you can defend your own borders or if you require protection." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. "Of course. Admiral Okoye is waiting in orbit with a demonstration fleet." The council chamber's central display activated, showing the space around the Nexus. 3 human ships appeared, each one about 800 feet long. They were angular and gray, with visible weapons ports and basic shield emitters. By galactic standards, they looked outdated by centuries. Sar then studied the ships with barely concealed amusement. "These are your warships?" "These are what we brought to show you," Sarah said carefully. The distinction was subtle, but a few council members noticed. The bird-like alien tilted its head. "An interesting choice of words, Ambassador." The demonstration proceeded. The human ships fired kinetic weapons, missiles, and basic energy weapons at target drones. They performed combat maneuvers that were adequate but unimpressive. Their shields held against simulated attacks but showed obvious weaknesses. Everything about the display screamed second-rate military power, exactly as planned. Back on Earth, Admiral Marcus Okoye watched the demonstration from the command center deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Around him, holographic displays showed the real human fleet, 500 ships that made the demonstration vessels look like toys. Technology that had taken decades of secret development, hidden from everyone. Even most of Earth's own governments. They're buying it, said his second-in-command. Captain Rodriguez, of course they are, Okoye replied. His voice was deep and thoughtful. They see what they expect to see. A primitive species trying to play with the big powers. Does it bother you? Letting them think we're weak? Okoye was quiet for a moment. He was 58 years old, and he had spent his entire adult life in military service. Everything in his training screamed at him to show strength, to never back down. But he was also wise enough to see the bigger picture. Better they underestimate us than fear us, he finally said. Fear makes people do stupid things. If they knew what we really have, they might try to destroy us before we become a threat. This way we buy time. Time to learn about them. Time to build alliances. Time to be ready if diplomacy fails. And if it does fail, Okoye's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why we were holding back. Back on the Nexus, the demonstration concluded. The council members discussed among themselves in various languages, their translation devices creating a cacophony of sound. Finally, Zarthan spoke. Your military is adequate for defending your home system. Barely. You are granted provisional council membership. You will pay the standard tribute, follow all council regulations, and accept that your voice in council matters will be limited until you prove yourselves worthy of full status. Sarah wanted to laugh. Tribute, limited voice, these were terms you used with conquered peoples, not equals. But she kept her face neutral. We accept these terms, she said. But I want to be clear about something. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. What you have seen today is what we choose to show you. We are here for peace, for cooperation, for building something better together. But do not mistake our desire for peace as inability to defend ourselves. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Zarthan's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, little human? It's a warning, Sarah replied calmly. We hope you never need to understand the difference. The High Prelate laughed, and many council members joined him. They thought it was the desperate bluster of a weak species trying to save face. Only a few of the older, wiser council members stayed silent. They had seen many species rise and fall over the centuries, and they knew that the most dangerous beings were often the ones who seemed harmless. Sarah and her team left the council chamber with their heads high. They had accomplished their mission. Earth was now part of the galactic community. The mask was in place. Now they could only hope that the mask would never need to come off. But in her heart, Sarah knew the truth. She had studied history. She knew what happened when arrogance met restraint, when cruelty pushed too far against patience. She knew that warnings, no matter how clear, were often ignored until it was too late. The reckoning had not begun, but its seeds had been planted. 15 years changed everything and nothing at all. Ambassador Sarah Chen looked older now. The gray in her hair had spread, and lines of stress marked her face. She sat in her office on the Nexus, reviewing the latest report from the frontier colonies, and her hands trembled with barely controlled anger. 3 more human freighters had been attacked near the outer rim. The ships were destroyed, their crews killed and their cargo stolen. The attackers were Kavros privateers, everyone knew it. But when Sarah brought evidence to the council, they simply shrugged. Space is dangerous, High Prelate Zarthan had said with a grin. Perhaps your ship should travel with better protection. Oh, but wait, your military is so limited. Perhaps you should hire Kavros escorts. For a reasonable fee, of course. It was extortion dressed up as concern, and there was nothing Sarah could do about it through official channels. Earth had changed in 15 years, too. When humanity first joined the council, they were excited, hopeful. They imagined trading knowledge, sharing cultures, building friendships across the stars. Instead, they found a galaxy that treated them like servants. The council imposed trade restrictions on human goods. Earth's manufactured items were subject to tariffs that made them non-competitive. Human colonies were denied access to certain regions of space because older council members claimed historical rights. When humans protested unfair treatment, they were reminded of their provisional status and told to be grateful for what they had. And always, there was the tribute. Every year, Earth had to send resources, technology, and wealth to the Council. It was supposedly to fund shared infrastructure and defense. In reality, it was a tax on being the newest and weakest member. Sarah's assistant, David Park, entered the office with fresh coffee. He was 30 years old now, having started as a junior diplomat when Earth first joined the Council. He had watched his idealism slowly drain away year by year. Another rejection, he said, putting a datapad on Sarah's desk. The council denied our petition to investigate the freighter attacks. Same as last time. Sarah closed her eyes. Did Tsar then give a reason? He said the evidence was insufficient and that humans were probably staging the attacks themselves for sympathy. Of course he did. Sarah took a sip of coffee. It was terrible. Made from recycled station water, but it was familiar. Small comforts mattered out here. Ambassador, David said carefully. Some of the junior diplomats are asking questions. They want to know why we keep taking this. They've heard rumors about military projects back home. They're asking if the rumors are true. Sarah looked at him steadily. What rumors? That we're not as weak as we appear. That we've been building something in secret. That all of this submission is an act. And what do you think, David? He was quiet for a moment. I think we've been warning them for 15 years. I think every time they push us, you tell them they're making a mistake. And I think they keep laughing. So either we really are helpless or we're the most patient people in the galaxy. Sarah smiled grimly. Patience is a human virtue. But even patience has limits. On Earth, Admiral Okoye stood in the command center, now relocated to a facility on the dark side of the moon. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of Project Reckoning. That was what they called it. Though the name was classified at the highest levels, 500 warships had become 700. The technology had advanced beyond anything the Council possessed. Quantum entanglement weapons that could strike targets across light years instantly. Singularity drives that made ships move faster than anything in known space. Nanite swarms that could disassemble enemy vessels at the molecular level. AI systems that could predict enemy movements before they happened. And the gravity lances, Okoye's personal favorite. Weapons that could create temporary black holes and crush entire fleets. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez approached him. She was a colonel now, promoted for her work on the tactical network systems. We just received word from New Harmony Colony. They're detecting unusual ship movements in their sector. New Harmony was one of Earth's newest colonies. 50,000 people, mostly families, living on a beautiful world with purple oceans and 3 moons. It was far from Earth, far from protection. Okoye felt his stomach tighten. What kind of ships? Tellurian Combine Battle Group. 20 warships moving directly toward the colony. The Tellurian Combine was an insectoid species that controlled much of the galactic trade networks. They were allies of the Kavros Empire and had been pushing for humans to be expelled from the Council entirely. They claimed humanity was bad for business. Mobilize the 6th Fleet, Okoye ordered. Quantum jump, maximum speed. I want them at New Harmony in 4 hours. Sir, if we reveal our jump capabilities, I don't care. Get our people there now. But 4 hours was too long. The Tellurian attack was swift and brutal. They bombarded New Harmony's main settlement from orbit, claiming it was a response to illegal colonization of Combine claimed space. The fact that the Combine had made no such claim until that morning was conveniently ignored. When the 6th Fleet arrived, the bombardment was over. 3,000 civilians were dead. The settlement was rubble. Survivors huddled in emergency shelters, traumatized and terrified. Admiral Okoye stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the devastation on the main screen. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. Many were crying. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the Tellurian Battle Group. They say this was a lesson. They say humanity needs to learn its place. Okoye wanted to give the order right then. Unleash everything. Show them what human weapons could do. Turn their fleet into debris and make them understand the mistake they had made. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not without authorization. Take us back to Earth, he said, his voice hollow. We need to report to the Council of Nations. Sarah Chen received the news while in the council chamber. She was in the middle of a routine session when the message came through on her private communicator. She read it once, then again unable to process the words. New Harmony, 3,000 dead. A lesson. She stood up slowly. The council members noticed and turned to look at her. Sarah walked to the center platform, her legs moving automatically. Humanity has suffered an attack, she said. Her voice was shaking, but whether from grief or rage she could not tell. The Tellurian Combine has bombarded one of our colonies. 3,000 civilians are dead. Men, women, children. Tsar then leaned back in his seat. How unfortunate. Perhaps your colonists should be more careful about where they settle. It was an unprovoked attack on an unarmed civilian population, Sarah said. Each word came out like a knife. This is a war crime by any definition. War crime? A Tellurian representative clicked its mandibles. We were defending our territorial claims. If humans cannot understand basic galactic law, perhaps they should return to their primitive little world. Sarah looked around the chamber. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others seemed amused. None of them looked like they cared. We have bled for peace, Sarah said. The trembling in her voice was gone now. It was replaced by something cold and hard. We have endured your insults. We have paid your tribute. We have begged you to see reason. We have warned you again and again that you were making a mistake. Warned us? Zar then laughed. What will you do, little human? Send your museum pieces to frighten us? You are weak. You have always been weak. And the weak do not make demands of the strong. Sarah stared at him. For 15 years she had played the diplomat. She had smiled at insults, accepted humiliation, and swallowed rage. All for peace. All to give humanity time. But some prices were too high. High Prelate Zarthen, she said clearly. I want to be absolutely clear. This is humanity's final warning. Stop these attacks. Make reparations. Treat us as equals. Or face consequences beyond your comprehension. The chamber erupted in laughter. Even the species that had shown some sympathy before joined in. It was too much. The idea that humanity, weak little humanity, could threaten the entire council was absurd. Zar then stood up from his seat. I have a better idea, Ambassador. Earth will submit completely to council authority. You will dissolve your colonial ventures. You will double your tribute. You will accept military oversight from Kavros forces, or the council will vote to remove humanity from galactic space entirely, by force if necessary. You have 1 week to comply, he continued. Refuse and we will show you what real power looks like. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she gathered her datapads and turned to leave. Where are you going? Zar then demanded. We are not finished. Sarah stopped at the entrance to the chamber. She looked back over her shoulder. Yes, we are, she said. We're done talking. We're done warning you. We're done begging. You've made your choice. She walked out, her team following behind her. Within hours, every human diplomat on the Nexus had packed their belongings and returned to Earth. The embassies were empty. The communication channels went silent. On Earth, the Council of Nations met in emergency session. They reviewed the evidence. They debated for exactly 4 hours. Then they voted. The message was sent to Admiral Okoye in a single word: unleashed. High Prelate Zar then stood in the command center of the Kavros flagship Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet assemble. 2,000 warships from 7 different species, all united under one purpose: the complete subjugation of humanity. It was the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. Ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, filling the void with weapons and power. Kavros dreadnoughts, Tellurian swarm ships, Vorak carriers, and more. Each one was a masterpiece of destruction, built over thousands of years of galactic warfare. It's beautiful, said War Master Krell, Zarthen's second-in-command. The humans will see this fleet and surrender immediately. There is no other rational choice. Zarthen nodded, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Send the scouts ahead. I want full scans of the Sol system. Let us see what pathetic defense the humans have managed to scrape together. The scouts jumped to Earth's system. 10 small fast ships equipped with the best sensors in the galaxy. They arrived expecting to find a few dozen outdated human vessels trying desperately to organize some kind of defense. Instead, they found 500 ships waiting in perfect formation. The scout commander stared at his screens in confusion. These were not the ships they had seen 15 years ago. These vessels were sleek and dark, almost black, shaped like daggers. They made no sound, gave off strange energy readings, and seemed to bend space around them in ways that should not be possible. Get closer, he ordered. I want full scans of those ships. The scouts moved in. That was their first mistake. One of the human ships rotated smoothly to face them. There was no visible weapon discharge, no obvious attack. One moment the scout ship was there, and the next moment it simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone, erased from existence as if it had never been. What in the void? The scout commander's voice was shaking. All ships retreat now. 9 scout ships tried to turn and jump away. 3 more disappeared in that same terrible way. 6 managed to escape and jump back to the fleet. The scout commander rushed to Zarthan's command center. His scales were pale with fear. "High Prelate, the humans have a fleet." "A real fleet. The ships are unlike anything in our databases. They have weapons we do not understand." "How many ships?" Zarthan demanded. 500 detected. "But High Prelate, they destroyed 4 of my scouts without even appearing to fire. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No debris. No energy discharge, nothing," Krell laughed. 500 ships against our 2,000? And you are frightened by some kind of sensor trick? The humans are trying to make us fear them with illusions. But some of the other commanders looked less certain. 500 ships was far more than Earth had ever shown, and strange new weapons were always dangerous. "It does not matter," Zarthan declared. "We outnumber them 4-1. Even if they have been hiding some new technology, numbers will prevail. We jump to Sol system in 1 hour. Prepare for battle." The massive fleet entered faster than light travel together. It was an impressive sight. A swarm of destruction moving as one. They emerged near Earth's orbit, weapons charged, shields at maximum, ready to crush any resistance. Admiral Marcus Okoye sat in the command chair of the flagship Victory, watching the enemy fleet appear on his displays. His face was calm, but his heart was pounding. This was it. Everything humanity had built, all the secrets they had kept, would be revealed in the next few hours. "Enemy fleet detected," reported the tactical officer. "Counting 1,987 vessels. Multiple ship classes. They are forming Standard Council battle formation." "Standard formation," Okoye said quietly. "Against an enemy they know nothing about. Arrogant to the end." He touched his communicator. "All ships, this is Okoye. You have your orders. Show them what we are. Show them why we were holding back. Make them understand." The human fleet moved. They did not charge forward like the Council expected. They did not try to match the enemy formation. Instead, they simply dispersed, each ship moving independently but in perfect coordination. The Kavros fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the human ships. It should have been devastating. An overwhelming attack that no defense could stop. But the human ships were not there anymore. They had moved before the weapons arrived. Not with conventional drives, but with quantum displacement. One instant they were in one location. The next instant they were somewhere else with no transition between. It was not faster than light travel. It was something else entirely. "Impossible," Zarthan roared. "Nothing can move like that. Find them, target them." The human counterattack began. From the Victory, strange silver spheres launched into space. They looked harmless, about the size of a basketball. But when they reached the Kavros fleet, they bloomed open like flowers, each one releasing billions of nanites. The nanites were so small they passed through shields like they were not there. They attached to hull plating, to weapon systems, to power cores, and then they began to disassemble everything at the molecular level. A Kavros dreadnought, one of the most powerful ships in the galaxy, simply came apart, not exploding but dissolving, breaking down into its component atoms. The crew barely had time to scream before their own bodies were taken apart by the swarm. 12 more ships followed. Then 20. Then 50. "Deploy counter nanites," Krell shouted. "Electromagnetic pulses!" "Stop them." But the human nanites were adaptive. Every defense the Council used they evolved around in seconds. AI systems far beyond anything the galaxy possessed guided each microscopic machine, making decisions faster than organic minds could comprehend. And that was only one weapon. Another human ship fired what looked like a simple energy beam. But when it hit a Tellurian carrier, the ship did not explode. Instead, it collapsed inward, crushing down into a point of infinite density. A temporary black hole lasting only seconds but long enough to devour the entire vessel and everything around it. Gravity lances. They called them gravity lances. Zarthan watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. "All ships concentrate fire. Focus on one human ship at a time. We still outnumber them." The fleet tried to follow orders. 300 ships targeted a single human vessel, pouring everything they had at it. The human ship's shields flared bright blue. They absorbed the assault without even dimming. Then the ship returned fire with what the humans called a relativistic kill missile. The missile used quantum entanglement to arrive at its target before it was fired from a human perspective. It simply appeared inside the enemy formation, traveling at 99% the speed of light. When it hit, it released energy equivalent to a small star going supernova. The explosion took out 67 ships in an instant. The battle lasted 4 hours. In that time, the Council fleet learned true fear. They learned that the outdated vessels Earth had shown them 15 years ago were museum pieces, obsolete technology kept just for display. They learned that humanity had been developing weapons in secret for decades. They learned that every warning the humans had given was not bluster or desperation, but genuine attempts to avoid this exact moment. And they learned far too late that restraint was not weakness. Of the nearly 2,000 ships that entered Sol's system, only 73 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. Thousands of alien crew members died. Others surrendered and were taken prisoner, treated with more mercy than they had shown New Harmony. Admiral Okoye broadcast a message across all galactic channels. His face appeared on screens throughout Council space, from the Nexus to the farthest colonies. This is Admiral Marcus Okoye of the Earth Defense Fleet. For 15 years, humanity has pleaded for peace. We endured your insults. We paid your tribute. We accepted humiliation.
And we warned you.
We warned you over and over that you were making a terrible mistake. His voice hardened. You did not listen. You attacked our colonies. You killed our civilians. You declared war on people who only wanted to live in peace. So now you face the consequences. This fleet you have seen today is what we are capable of. These weapons are what we were hiding. We did not hide them because we were afraid. We hid them because we were trying to avoid this exact outcome. We were giving you every chance to choose peace, but you chose war, and now you will learn what humanity looks like when we stop holding back. On the Nexus, the remaining council members watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The species that had mocked humanity 15 years ago could not speak. They had just witnessed the most advanced military force in the galaxy destroy an overwhelming fleet without losing a single ship. Ambassador Chen's words echoed in their memories. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. High Prelate Tsar then sat in his damaged flagship as it limped away from Sol system. His perfect scales were scratched and burned. His eyes, which had always looked at others with contempt, now held only shock. How? He whispered. How did we not know? War Master Krell, bleeding from a head wound, answered quietly. They told us. They warned us. We just did not believe them. Tsar then thought of Ambassador Chen standing in the council chamber trying so hard for peace. He thought of all the times humans had been insulted, exploited, attacked. And he thought of how patient they had been. That patience was gone now. The reckoning had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The galaxy held its breath after the Battle of Sol. News of the human victory spread like fire across every inhabited system. 2,000 ships destroyed by 500. Weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. A species that had seemed primitive, revealing technology centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed. But High Prelate Tsar then was not finished. Humiliated and enraged, he returned to Kavros Prime and began rallying his forces. The Kavros Empire was old and vast, with resources spanning hundreds of systems. 2,000 ships were merely the vanguard. He could assemble much more. They had the advantage of surprise, he told his war council. They ambushed us in their home system where they had prepared every advantage. But they cannot defend everywhere at once. We will strike their colonies, force them to spread their fleet thin, and crush them with sheer numbers. The Tellurian Combine agreed. They had lost face and profits in the battle, and the insectoid leaders wanted revenge. The Vorak Confederation, the Gen Collective, and 3 other council species joined the coalition. Together they represented nearly a third of galactic military power. This is a war of extinction now, Tsar then declared in a council session. Only 20 species remained in the council now. The others had quietly withdrawn, unwilling to fight humans. Earth must be destroyed completely. Their species must be erased, or none of us will ever be safe again. But humanity was done waiting for attacks to come. Admiral Okoye stood in the command center on Luna, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. His staff had grown, filled with younger officers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. We have been defensive for 15 years, he said, playing the victim, hoping that reason would prevail. But you cannot reason with beings who see you as inferior, so we will teach them a lesson they will never forget. Captain Rodriguez, now a full admiral herself, pulled up tactical displays. We have confirmed military targets across Kavros, Tellurian, and Vorak space. The question is how hard we hit them. We hit them hard enough that they cannot recover, Okoye said flatly. Hard enough that every other species in the galaxy thinks twice before threatening Earth. But we remain precise. Military targets only. We are not butchers. Sir, they attacked our civilians at New Harmony, which is why we will not become like them. Okoye's voice was firm. We show the galaxy what a civilized species looks like even in war. That is how we win not just the battle, but the peace that follows. The human offensive began 3 days after the Battle of Saw. The first target was a Tellurian military complex. In the Outer Rim, it was a massive facility where the Combine built their swarm ships, protected by orbital defense platforms and a home fleet of 200 vessels. The Tellurians detected the human fleet approaching and scrambled to defend. 200 ships rose to meet 50 human vessels. The defenders were confident. Even with superior technology, they still had numbers. The battle lasted 37 minutes. Human ships moved through the Tellurian fleet like sharks through schools of fish. Their quantum displacement drives made them impossible to predict or target effectively. Their weapons were surgical, destroying enemy ships with single shots. And most terrifying of all, their AI tactical systems coordinated every ship into a perfect whole, making decisions and adjustments faster than any organic command structure could manage. When it was over, the Tellurian home fleet was destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. The military complex was disabled, its manufacturing capabilities offline, and humanity broadcast their message across all channels. This facility has been neutralized. The workers inside are unharmed. We targeted only military capabilities. Surrender and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting, and we will continue winning. The message sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Humanity was not just winning. They were winning perfectly. High Prelate Tsar then refused to surrender. Instead, he became more desperate. The Kavros Empire had one weapon they had never used, a weapon so terrible that galactic law forbade its creation: stellar collapse weapons. Devices that could destabilize a star and cause it to go supernova, destroying everything in the system. Tsar then authorized their use against human colony worlds. Ambassador Sarah Chen received intelligence about the weapons from a surprising source. A member of the council, a being called Speaker Ven from the Alari Collective, sent a secret communication. Ambassador Chen, the message read, I must break my oath of neutrality to warn you. Zarthan has activated stellar collapse weapons targeting 3 of your colonies, Redfern, New Shanghai, and Hope's Landing. The weapons will detonate within 48 hours. I am ashamed that my civilization stood by while this happened. Please forgive us and please stop him. Sarah felt ice in her veins. 3 colonies, nearly 200,000 people, and 48 hours to save them. She sent the intelligence to Admiral Okoye immediately. Okoye gathered his command staff. Can we stop the weapons? Not if they are already in place and activated, Rodriguez said. The stellar collapse process is quantum locked. Even if we destroy the devices, the reaction will continue. Then we evacuate the colonies. Admiral, evacuating 200,000 people in 48 hours is impossible. Our transport capacity, make it possible. Okoye's fist slammed on the table. I will not lose more civilians. Deploy every transport ship we have. Commandeer civilian vessels if necessary. And send our fastest ships to Kavros Prime now. The next 48 hours were chaos. Human transport ships jumped in and out of the 3 targeted systems, pulling people off planets as fast as physically possible. Mothers grabbed children. Elderly people were carried aboard by soldiers. Pets were stuffed into carriers. Everything else was left behind. They saved 187,000 people. 13,000 could not be evacuated in time. The stars collapsed. 3 human colonies, 3 beautiful worlds that people had called home, were consumed by supernovas. The deaths were instant at least. Small mercy in an act of monstrous cruelty. Admiral Okoye watched the readings as the stars died. 13,000 people. 13,000 faces he would never know. 13,000 lives snuffed out because one arrogant leader could not accept defeat. Rodriguez, he said quietly. Ready the fleet, all of it. We are going to Kavros Prime. Sir, that is their home system. They will have thousands of ships defending it. I know. Okoye's voice was cold as the void. Ready the fleet. The human armada jumped to Kavros Prime 3 days later. 700 ships, everything Earth could deploy. They emerged at the edge of the system, and the Kavros defense fleet rushed to meet them. 3,000 ships. The largest home defense force ever assembled. Kavros dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, fighters. Every vessel the Empire could bring to bear. Against them, 700 human ships that had become legend across the galaxy. The Battle of Kavros Prime would be studied for generations. High Prelate Tsar then commanded from his fortress on the planet's surface. He watched the battle unfold on massive screens, seeing his fleet move to engage the humans. At first, he was confident. 3,000 ships against 700. Even with human technology, surely numbers would tell. Then the human fleet demonstrated something new. They had been holding back even more. From the flagship Victory, Admiral Okoye activated the consciousness-linked tactical network. Every ship in the human fleet connected to a quantum AI that could predict enemy movements before they happened. Not by magic or psychic powers, but by analyzing every tiny piece of data. Every engine signature, every communication, every tactical pattern, and calculating probable outcomes billions of times per second. The human fleet knew where every enemy ship would be before they moved there. The result was not a battle. It was a symphony of destruction, perfectly choreographed. Human ships moved like they were dancing, always in the right place at the right time. They targeted weak points with impossible precision. They coordinated across the entire fleet without needing verbal commands, and they were merciless. Kavros ships exploded by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The defenders tried every tactic they knew. They tried overwhelming single targets. They tried flanking maneuvers. They tried kamikaze runs. Nothing worked. The humans anticipated everything and countered perfectly. In 72 hours of continuous fighting, the Kavros defense fleet was destroyed. 3,000 ships reduced to debris. The orbital defense platforms were disabled, and the human fleet took up positions above Kavros Prime, their weapons pointed at the planet below. Tsar then stood in his fortress, surrounded by his war council. Outside, the sky was filled with human ships. His empire, the great Kavros Empire that had dominated this region of space for 10,000 years, was defeated. Admiral Okoye's face appeared on every screen across the planet. High Prelate Tsar then, Okoye said, his voice carrying to billions of Kavros civilians. Your fleet is destroyed. Your military is broken. You used weapons of mass destruction against civilian populations. By the laws of warfare that your own council wrote, you are guilty of crimes against civilization. I am offering you one chance. Surrender yourself for trial. Accept peace terms, or I will treat your planet the way you treated our colonies. Tsar then wanted to refuse. His pride, his honor. 18 months after the war began, it ended. The remaining members of the coalition surrendered one by one. The Tellurian Combine, seeing their homeworld under siege, capitulated within days of Kavros Prime's fall. The Vorak Confederation lasted longer, trying to negotiate better terms, but eventually accepted that there was no negotiating position left. Humanity had won. Completely and utterly. Ambassador Sarah Chen returned to the Nexus for the first time in nearly 2 years. The station looked the same, but everything felt different. As she walked through the corridors, aliens stepped aside. Some bowed their heads. Others stared with expressions mixing fear and respect. The council chamber was half empty. Many species had withdrawn from the council entirely during the war, unwilling to take sides. Only 23 remained now, and they all stood as Sarah entered. Please sit, Sarah said tiredly. We are not here for ceremony. We are here to build peace. Speaker Ven of the Ilari Collective spoke first. The elderly alien's voice was soft but clear. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of those species who remained neutral during the conflict, I must apologize. We knew you were treated unfairly. We knew Zarthen was leading us toward disaster. But we did nothing. We were cowards and we are ashamed. Sarah looked at the speaker for a long moment. You sent us intelligence about the stellar collapse weapons. You warned us in time to save nearly 200,000 lives. That was not cowardice, Speaker Ven. That was courage when it mattered most. Another council member, a being that resembled a crystalline tree, chimed with worry. What will Earth demand of us now? You have won the war. Your military is supreme. You could make us all servants or worse. We could, Sarah agreed. But we will not. Humanity did not fight this war to conquer. We fought to survive and to make certain no one would threaten us again. She activated a holographic display showing a document. This is the proposed charter for a new galactic commonwealth. Not a council where older species dominate younger ones, but a true union of equals. Every species gets equal representation. Decisions require consensus, not the approval of the powerful. And aggressive war becomes illegal, enforced by a unified peacekeeping force. You want us to have equal power with you? Another member asked, confused. After everything? Yes, Sarah said simply. Because peace built on conquest does not last. Peace built on fear does not last. The only peace that endures is peace built on mutual respect and justice. Admiral Okoye was in a different kind of meeting. He stood in a courthouse on Earth watching as High Prelate Zarthan was led into the room for trial. The Kavros leader looked smaller now. His scales had dulled. His eyes held none of their former arrogance. He was just a tired old being who had made terrible choices. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented methodically and fairly. Zarthan was allowed to speak in his defense. When he tried to claim he had been following military necessity, the prosecution showed recordings of his speeches calling for human extinction. The verdict was guilty on all counts. War crimes, crimes against civilization, and use of forbidden weapons. The sentence came from a panel of judges representing multiple species, including humans. They debated for hours on the appropriate punishment. Death, some argued. He killed thousands of civilians deliberately. Justice demands execution, but others disagreed. If we execute him, we prove that violence is the answer. We become what he claimed we were. In the end, the sentence was life imprisonment with mandatory rehabilitation. Zarthan would spend the rest of his life in a facility designed not just to punish, but to help him understand what he had done wrong and why. When the sentence was read, Zarthan expected rage or satisfaction from the humans in the room. Instead, he saw only sadness. Admiral Okoye spoke to him privately before he was taken away. Do you understand yet? Okoye asked. Understand what? Zarthan's voice was bitter. That you defeated me? No. Okoye shook his head. That we never wanted to defeat you. We wanted to be your friends. We came to the galaxy hoping to learn and share and build something beautiful together. You made us into warriors, High Prelate. Every human who died, every ship we built, every weapon we created was because you and your allies forced us to defend ourselves. You were always warriors, Zarthan spat. You simply hid it. We were always capable of being warriors, Okoye corrected. Every species is, but being capable of violence and choosing violence are very different things. We chose restraint. We chose patience. We chose peace until you left us no choice. That is the lesson you failed to learn. Zarthan was silent for a long time. Then quietly, I saw your soldiers giving food to my people after the siege. Why? Because they were hungry, Okoye said simply. Because they are not soldiers. They are people. And people help each other when they can. It would take years for Zarthan to truly understand, but in that moment, the first seed of comprehension was planted. The war reparations were unusual by galactic standards. Yes, the defeated species had to pay compensation to human colonies that were attacked, but Earth also invested heavily in rebuilding what the war had destroyed. Kavros Prime received humanitarian aid. Medical supplies, food, infrastructure assistance. Human engineers helped repair damage from the siege. Human doctors treated wounded Kavros civilians. Why are they helping us? A young Kavros asked his teacher. We tried to kill them. The teacher, an old Kavros who had watched the whole war, thought carefully before answering. Because they are showing us what they tried to tell us all along. That strength is not just the ability to destroy, but the choice not to. They are teaching us what a truly advanced civilization looks like. Within 2 years, the Galactic Commonwealth was established. 47 species joined, including all the original council members plus several new ones. The headquarters remained on the Nexus, but the structure was completely different. Ambassador Sarah Chen was elected as the first Commonwealth Secretary, chosen by the vote of all member species. In her acceptance speech, she was careful to acknowledge the past while looking toward the future. We have all made mistakes, she said. Humanity included. We hid our capabilities out of fear, and that secrecy bred distrust. We should have been more open, more willing to trust that others would see reason. Perhaps if we had been honest from the beginning, this war could have been avoided. But we cannot change the past. We can only build a better future. A future where no species fears another, where disputes are resolved through dialogue, not destruction, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. This is not humanity's commonwealth. This is our commonwealth. All of us together. Admiral Okoye addressed the Earth Defense Fleet in a ceremony on Luna. Half of the warships were being decommissioned. They were no longer needed. You have served with honor, he told the assembled crews. You were ready to die to protect humanity, and thank the universe most of you did not have to. Now we enter a new phase. Some of you will remain in the Commonwealth peacekeeping force. Others will return to civilian life. All of you will be remembered as the generation that secured our place in the galaxy. He paused, looking out at the young faces. But I want you to remember one thing. Victory in war is necessary sometimes, but the real victory is in how you behave after the war. Show mercy, show compassion, teach others what you have learned. That is how we truly win. 25 years after the war ended, a new species made first contact with the Commonwealth. They were called the Zanari, a reptilian species from the far side of the galaxy. They approached with caution, broadcasting peaceful intentions but clearly nervous. The Commonwealth sent an ambassador to greet them. It was a human, a young woman named Michelle Torres who had been a child during the war. Welcome, she said warmly. We are the Galactic Commonwealth. We are a union of equals, dedicated to peace and mutual prosperity. What brings you to us? The Zanari captain looked around nervously at the Commonwealth fleet that had come to escort them safely to the Nexus. The ships were clearly powerful, built with technology beyond anything the Zanari had. We heard stories, the captain said, stories of humans, that you destroyed thousands of ships in a great war, that you have weapons that can erase stars. We wanted to see if the stories were true, to know if we should fear you. Michelle smiled gently. The stories are true. Humanity has powerful weapons, and so do many of our allies, but we keep those weapons locked away. We use them only to defend, never to conquer. But you could conquer, the captain said. Why do you not? Because conquest is easy, Michelle replied. Any species with enough weapons can dominate others through fear. But building something together, creating a civilization where everyone contributes and everyone benefits, that is hard. That requires patience, wisdom, and restraint. She gestured to the diverse crew on her ship. Humans, Kavros, Tellurians, Vorak, Alari, and a dozen other species working side by side. We learned that lesson the hard way. We tried to avoid war and failed. But we also learned that how you win matters as much as winning. We showed mercy when we could have shown vengeance, and that choice made all the difference. The Zanari captain was quiet, processing this. Then, we would like to learn more about your Commonwealth. Perhaps join if you will have us. The Great Council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel. It orbited Axis Prime, a world that belonged to no one and everyone. Inside the massive station, 7 species gathered to decide the fate of billions. They had done this for thousands of years. They were the elders of the galaxy, the wise ones, the teachers of civilization. Today they would make a mistake that would cost them everything. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the center of the circular chamber. Above her, the representatives of the 7 elder species looked down from their elevated platforms. The chamber was designed this way on purpose. Those who came before the council were meant to feel small. They were meant to understand their place. Sarah did not feel small. She felt angry. Honorable Council, she began, her voice steady and clear. I come before you today to formally protest the actions of the Krell Collective. They have violated the Treaty of First Contact. They have entered the Terran border zone without permission. They have established military stations in space that belongs to humanity. This is not acceptable. From the highest platform, a being made of living crystal shifted. Light refracted through its body, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber. This was Elder Cathros of the Viridian Empire. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Ambassador Chen, the Krell Collective has filed proper expansion claims according to galactic law. Your protest is noted but dismissed. Sarah's jaw tightened. With respect, Elder Cathros, the Treaty of First Contact clearly states that any territorial expansion near a developing species requires approval from that species. We do not approve. A sound like grinding stones filled the chamber. It was laughter. The Krell representative, a massive creature that looked like an insect crossed with a tank, was laughing at her. Ambassador, the Krell representative said, its voice translated by machines into something humans could understand. Your species has been in space for 50 of your years, 50. The Krell Collective has explored the stars for 10,000 years. The Viridian Empire has existed for 50,000. Do you truly believe you have the right to tell us what we can and cannot do? Sarah took a deep breath. She had expected this. The other ambassadors had warned her. The elder species did not respect humanity. To them, humans were children playing with toys they did not understand. I believe, Sarah said carefully, that the treaty is clear. It does not matter how old a species is. The law applies to everyone. More laughter echoed through the chamber, not just from the Krell now, but from others. The telepathic Morpheans, creatures of pure thought wrapped in energy fields. The Xinthians, who breathed methane and looked like floating jellyfish. Even the Talivor, who had always been polite to humanity, seemed amused. Elder Cathros spoke again. Ambassador Chen, your species is young. You do not understand how the galaxy works. You think laws are absolute. They are not. Laws are interpreted by those who have the wisdom to understand them. Humanity has not earned that wisdom yet. Then let me be very clear, Sarah said, her voice hardening. Humanity does not care about your interpretation. We care about our people. There are 2 million human civilians in the New Horizon colony. That colony is in the Terran border zone. If the Krell Collective continues to build military stations nearby, we will view it as an act of aggression. The Krell representative moved forward, its massive bulk making the platform beneath it groan. An act of aggression? What will you do, little human? Will you fight us? The Krell Collective has 3,000 warships. How many do you have? Sarah did not answer the question. Instead, she pulled out a data tablet and began reading from it. On behalf of the United Terran Nations, I hereby deliver a formal warning to the Krell Collective and to this council. You have 30 standard days to withdraw all military forces from the Terran border zone. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. A notification? Elder Cathros sounded genuinely curious now. Of what precisely? Of consequences, Sarah said simply. If the Krell Collective does not withdraw, humanity will take action to protect its territory and its people. The chamber erupted. Every species began talking at once. Some were amused. Some were shocked by the audacity. The Krell representative slammed one of its limbs against its platform, creating a sound like a thunderclap. You dare threaten the Krell Collective? You dare threaten this council? I am not threatening anyone, Sarah replied, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. I am warning you. There is a difference. A threat is what you say when you want to intimidate someone. A warning is what you give when you want to prevent bloodshed. Elder Cathros's crystalline body pulsed with light. Ambassador Chen, you are young. Your species is young. You have been among the stars for less time than it takes some of our civilizations to elect a new leader. You have no concept of true power. You have no understanding of galactic politics. You come here and demand things as if you have the right to make demands. We have the right to defend our people, Sarah said. That is the only right we need. The Morphean representative, a being of pure thought, projected its words directly into the minds of everyone present. Its mental voice was ancient and tired. Human, you must understand. The galaxy has rules. These rules have kept peace for millennia. You cannot simply demand change because you are uncomfortable. You must learn patience. You must learn your place. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were hard as steel. Our place. Let me tell you about our place. Humans come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We didn't start at the top of the food chain. We climbed there. We learned to survive against creatures bigger than us, stronger than us, faster than us. We learned to work together. We learned to plan. We learned to fight when we had to fight. She paused, looking at each council member in turn. And we learned something else. We learned that warnings should be taken seriously. When a species that has survived for millions of years on a death world gives you a warning, you should listen. The Krell representative made a noise that sounded like contempt. Impressive speech, human. But words are not weapons. The Krell Collective will continue its expansion. Your 30 days mean nothing. What will you do when the deadline passes? Will you cry? Will you beg this council for help? Sarah gathered her documents. She prepared to leave. Before she walked out, she turned back one final time. I will do nothing, she said quietly. But humanity will do what it has always done when pushed too far. We will respond. And when we do, When your ships burn and your soldiers flee, remember this moment. Remember that you were warned. Remember that you laughed. Remember that you thought there would be no price for your actions. Consequences? The Krell representative scoffed. What consequences could children possibly deliver to their elders? Sarah Chen walked toward the exit. The massive doors opened before her. Just before she stepped through, she spoke one last time without turning around. You'll find out. And may whatever gods you believe in have mercy on you, because we won't. The doors closed behind her. The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Elder Cathras spoke, its voice filled with something that might have been pity. The humans will learn. They always do. Send them a message expressing our disappointment in their behavior. Perhaps in another 100 years they will be mature enough to join Galactic society properly. The council moved on to other business. They had already forgotten about the human ambassador and her ridiculous warnings. They would remember soon enough. In exactly 30 days, they would remember very well indeed. 28 days had passed since Ambassador Chen walked out of the Galactic Council. 28 days of silence from Earth. 28 days of waiting. The Krell Collective did not withdraw. Instead, they accelerated their expansion. Commander Zethax, a veteran of 40 wars across the galaxy, led the Krell forces into the Terran border zone. He did not believe humans would actually fight. They were too new, too weak, too naive. This would be a lesson. A gentle one, perhaps, but a lesson nonetheless. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we have established 3 military stations in the disputed zone. All are fully operational. Zethax looked at the star map before him. The human colony called New Horizon glowed on the display. 2.3 million humans lived there. Farmers mostly. Miners. Families seeking a better life on a frontier world. They were so far from Earth, so vulnerable. Good, Zethax said. Begin Phase 2. I want sensor stations established around their colony. Let them see our ships. Let them understand who controls this space now. Sir, should we expect resistance? Zethax made the clicking sound that passed for laughter among his species. From humans? They have been in space for 50 years. We have been traveling the stars since before their species learned to make fire. What resistance could they possibly offer? The Krell fleet moved forward. 12 warships, each one capable of destroying a city from orbit. They entered the New Horizon system without asking permission, without offering explanation. This was their space now. The Galactic Council had said so in their own way. By doing nothing, they had given approval. On New Horizon, alarms began to sound. The colony's defense coordinator, Marcus Webb, watched as the Krell ships appeared on his sensors. His hands shook as he activated the emergency broadcast system. Attention all residents. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile vessels have entered the system. Proceed to shelters immediately. I repeat, this is not a drill. Webb opened a channel to the UTNS Vigilant, a patrol vessel that protected the colony. It was not a warship. It was barely armed. It was meant to deal with pirates and smugglers, not a Krell battle fleet. Vigilant, this is New Horizon Control. We have multiple hostile contacts entering the system. Captain Rodriguez of the Vigilant responded immediately. Control, we see them. We're moving to intercept. Maybe we can talk them down. Be careful, Vigilant. Always am, Control. The Vigilant was a small ship with a crew of 47. Rodriguez knew they stood no chance against a Krell battle fleet. But that was not the point. The point was to show that humanity would not simply roll over. The point was to make a stand, even if it was a futile one. Rodriguez opened a communication channel to the Krell ships. Krell vessels, this is the UTNS Vigilant. You have entered Terran space without authorization. Under the Treaty of First Contact, I must ask you to withdraw immediately. The response came quickly. Zethax himself answered, his voice filled with contempt. Human vessel, you will stand down. This space is now under Krell administration. Interfere and you will be destroyed. I cannot allow that, Commander. My orders are to protect this colony. Then you will die following your orders. Rodriguez looked at his crew, young faces, scared faces, but determined. They all knew what was about to happen. They had all volunteered to stay. Krell Commander, I am obligated to warn you one final time. Withdraw or face the consequences. Zethax was done talking. Fire! The Krell weapons were designed to crack planets. Against a small patrol vessel, they were instant death. The Vigilant tried to evade, tried to fight back with its small defensive weapons. It did not matter. In 3 seconds, the ship was cut in half. In 5 seconds, both halves exploded. All 47 crew members died instantly. On New Horizon, Marcus Webb watched in horror as the Vigilant disappeared from his sensors. He grabbed the microphone with trembling hands. "The Vigilant is gone. They're all dead. Everyone get to the shelters now." But it was too late for many. Zithax had decided to send a message. He ordered his fleet to fire on the orbital stations around New Horizon. These were not military targets. They were civilian infrastructure. Docking stations, satellites, communication arrays. The bombardment lasted 10 minutes. When it was over, 12,000 humans were dead. Pieces of debris rained down on the colony below. Some pieces were metal and plastic. Some pieces had been people. Zithax sent a message to Earth, to the Galactic Council, to anyone who would listen. The Terran border zone is now under Krell control. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. The humans have learned their place. This matter is closed. On Earth, in a facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Fleet Admiral Marcus Stone received the casualty reports. He was a big man, scarred from old wars, gray-haired and gray-eyed. He had spent 40 years in the service. He had fought pirates, put down rebellions, kept the peace. He had never fought an interstellar war. Around him, his staff waited. Some were crying. Some were angry. All were looking to him for guidance, for orders, for something that would make sense of this. Stone looked at the casualty numbers for a long time. 12,000 dead, 47 more from the Vigilant. 12,047 people who woke up this morning expecting to live their lives. Parents, children, workers, dreamers, gone. He thought about Ambassador Chen's warning. He thought about how the Council had laughed. He thought about how they had been given 30 days to make this right, and they had chosen violence instead. Stone pressed a button on his console. "Get me the Prime Minister." While he waited, he pulled up a file on his computer. It was marked with the highest security classification. Only a handful of people in the entire human government knew it existed. It was called Protocol Reckoning. Humanity had spent 50 years in space. 50 years exploring, trading, learning. Everyone thought that was all humans were doing. Everyone was wrong. Humans had also been preparing. They had been building. They had been planning for the day when someone pushed too far. The galaxy thought humans were naive. They thought humans were peaceful explorers who would never fight. The galaxy had forgotten that humans came from Earth. Earth, where everything tried to kill you. Earth, where survival meant being smarter, faster, and more ruthless than everything else. Earth, where humanity learned one simple lesson: be ready, always, for when peace ends. The Prime Minister's face appeared on Stone's screen. She looked tired. She had been in emergency meetings since the first reports came in. "Admiral," she said, "I know what you're going to ask." "Then you know my answer, ma'am. We gave them a warning. We gave them 30 days. They laughed at us. They killed our people. They think we'll do nothing." The Prime Minister closed her eyes. "If we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. With respect, ma'am, the galaxy has never seen us clearly at all. They think we're children. They think we're weak. They need to understand something. Humans don't bluff. When we make a promise, we keep it. When we give a warning, we mean it. How many? How many what, ma'am? How many ships do we have that the Council doesn't know about?" Stone allowed himself a small, cold smile. "All of them, ma'am. The Council thinks we have maybe 200 warships. They're wrong. We have 2,000. We've been building them in the outer colonies for 40 years. They're better than anything the galaxy has seen. Faster, tougher, smarter. And you want to use them? I want to end this before it becomes a longer war. The Krell think they're untouchable. They think they can kill our people without consequences. I want to show them exactly how wrong they are." The Prime Minister was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded. "Do it. Execute Protocol Reckoning. Authorization Prime Alpha 1. Admiral Stone, you have full operational authority. Protect our people. Show the galaxy that warnings matter." Stone stood up straighter. "Yes, ma'am. One more thing." "What is it?" "When the Council asks what happened, tell them the truth. Tell them we warned them. Tell them they were given every chance to avoid this. Tell them that humanity does not pardon. We remember our dead and we make sure their deaths mean something." The Prime Minister nodded. "Good hunting, Admiral." The screen went dark. Stone turned to his staff. His voice was no longer that of a sad old man mourning the dead. It was the voice of a predator who had just been given permission to hunt. Execute Protocol Reckoning. Authorization Stone Alpha 9. All fleet commanders begin operational deployment. Target the Krell Collective. Rules of engagement: there are no rules. The Krell wanted a war. We're going to give them one they'll never forget. Outside, in secret shipyards scattered across 100 star systems, human warships began to move. They had been waiting for this day, hoping it would never come, but ready for when it did. The waiting was over. The Krell had made their choice. Now they would learn what it meant to ignore a warning from humanity. Commander Zethax expected many things after the attack on New Horizon. He expected angry messages from Earth. He expected the humans to complain to the Galactic Council. He expected diplomatic protests and strongly worded letters. Perhaps if the humans were feeling particularly bold, they might send a small fleet to posture at the border. What he got instead was silence. 3 days passed. Nothing. No messages, no threats, no fleet movements. The human ambassador did not return to the Galactic Council. Human ships did not approach Krell space. It was as if humanity had simply accepted its defeat and moved on. Zethax was pleased. The lesson had been learned. The humans understood their place now. On the 4th day, things began to change. A Krell trade station near the border reported something strange. All human merchants had departed. Suddenly, without warning, every human trading vessel had packed up and left. They did not explain why. They did not file proper departure documents. They simply left. Zethax found this odd but not alarming. Perhaps the humans were sulking. Then reports came from deeper in Krell space. Human civilians were evacuating. Tourists, workers, diplomats, everyone with human DNA was leaving Krell territory as fast as their ships could carry them. Within hours, there was not a single human left in any Krell-controlled system. Now Zethax felt the first whisper of concern. This was organized. This was planned. But planned for what? The answer came from the Galactic Council. Elder Cathros sent an urgent message to all member species. All human representatives have departed Council space. Ambassador Chen appeared before us one final time to deliver a message. Zethax watched the recording. Sarah Chen stood alone in the great chamber, her face calm but her eyes hard as diamonds. Honorable Council, she said, and there was no respect in the word honorable. You were warned. The warning was clear. You had 30 days to make this right. Instead, the Krell Collective chose to attack New Horizon. They killed 12,000 civilians. They destroyed the UTNS Vigilant and murdered 47 crew members. They believed there would be no consequences. She placed a data crystal on the ground before her. This crystal contains 2 recordings. The first is my original warning to this council. The second is footage of the attack on New Horizon. I want you to watch them. I want you to remember them. Because when this is over, when the Krell Collective is broken, I want you to remember that this was your choice as much as theirs. Ambassador Chen, Elder Cathros had interrupted. Surely we can negotiate. The time for negotiation ended when the first missile hit New Horizon, Chen said coldly. Humanity gave you peace. We gave you trade. We gave you friendship. We asked for only one thing in return: respect our territory. You could not even give us that. So now you will learn what humans are truly capable of. Remember, all of you, that you were warned. She turned and walked away. The recording ended. Zethax felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. It might have been fear, though he had not felt that emotion in decades. He pushed it aside. The Krell Collective was strong. They had 3,000 warships, tens of thousands of soldiers, military installations across 47 star systems. What could humanity possibly do? The answer came on the 5th day. Zethax was in the command center of his flagship when the alarm started screaming. His sensor officer stared at the displays with wide eyes. Commander, we have multiple contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. Grid coordinates Delta 7 through Delta 12. How many contacts? The officer's voice shook. 300 ships, sir. No, wait, 400. 500. Sir, they're still coming. Zethax moved to the sensor display. He saw them. Human ships, dozens of them. Then hundreds materializing out of nothing with a precision that should have been impossible. FTL jumps were never this accurate. There should have been drift, errors, delays between arrivals. These ships appeared in perfect formation, as if they had been there all along. Identify ship classes, Zethax ordered. fighting to keep his voice steady. Unknown, sir. They match no known human designs. They're larger than expected. Power signatures are... Commander, those power signatures are off the scale. They're reading higher than our heaviest battleships. Zethax's mandate had been simple. Guard the Krell forward operating base at Theta Remnant. This base controlled 3 star systems. It had been built over decades. 200 warships defended it, along with orbital weapons platforms, minefields, and automated defense systems. It was considered impregnable. The human fleet did not slow down. They did not send a message. They did not offer terms. They simply opened fire. Zethax had been in many battles. He knew what space combat looked like. Ships circling each other, exchanging fire, tactical retreats, reinforcements arriving. Battle was a dance, a game of strategy and patience. This was not a battle. This was an execution. The human weapons were like nothing in the Krell military database. Missiles that split into smaller missiles, each one tracking a different target. Energy beams that did not dissipate over distance. Projectiles that punched through shields as if they were not there at all. And the ships themselves moved with impossible agility, dodging return fire that should have hit them. Zethax watched as his fleet tried to respond. They launched everything they had. Missiles, torpedoes, energy weapons, kinetic rounds. The human ships simply intercepted them. Small drones shot out from the human vessels, destroying incoming weapons with perfect accuracy. Nothing got through. All ships concentrate fire on the lead vessel. Zethax ordered. The Krell fleet obeyed. 200 ships focused their weapons on a single human battleship. Enough firepower to crack a moon. The human ship's shields flared bright with the impact. For a moment, Zethax thought they might actually damage it. Then the shield stabilized. The ship was fine. It had tanked the full force of the Krell fleet and barely noticed. The human fleet split into smaller groups with perfect coordination. Each group targeted a section of the Krell defense. They worked together like a single organism, covering each other, supporting each other, moving as one. Zethax realized with growing horror that the human ships were not being piloted. Not entirely. They were too fast, too precise. Artificial intelligence. The humans had given their ships AI that could react faster than any living pilot. Commander, the orbital platforms are gone. The minefields are cleared. We've lost 40 ships in the first 10 minutes. 10 minutes. The battle had only been going on for 10 minutes. Call for reinforcements, Zethax ordered. Send a distress signal to all nearby fleets. Sir, we're being jammed. We can't send any signals beyond the system. Of course they were. The humans had thought of everything. This was not improvised. This was planned, rehearsed, perfected. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. The Galactic Council had thought humans were exploring. They were wrong. Humans were studying. They were learning every ship design, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine in the galaxy, and then they had built something better. Commander, we've lost half the fleet. The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat. Zethax looked at the tactical display. In 30 minutes, the human fleet had destroyed the Theta Remnant base and most of his ships. Those that survived were scattered, broken, running for their lives. The human fleet pursued without mercy, hunting down every vessel that tried to escape. Retreat, Zethax said quietly. All ships retreat to the secondary defensive line. But there was no retreat. The human ships were faster. They caught the fleeing Krell vessels one by one, destroying them with clinical efficiency. Zethax's own ship was hit by something that made his shields fail instantly. A second shot punched through the hull, destroying the engines. His ship began to spin out of control. Emergency systems activated. The crew scrambled to escape pods. Zethax found himself in one of those pods, floating in space, watching as the human fleet systematically destroyed everything. 47 minutes. That was how long the battle lasted. 47 minutes to destroy a base that had taken decades to build, to annihilate a fleet of 200 warships, to shatter Krell control of 3 star systems. Zethax's pod was picked up by a surviving Krell ship. From there, he sent a desperate message to the Krell homeworld and to the Galactic Council. The humans are not what we thought. They are not explorers. They are not merchants. They are warriors, and they have been preparing for war since the day they reached the stars. We need help. We need the Council to intervene. If they do not, the Krell Collective will fall. At the Galactic Council, the elder species were beginning to understand their mistake. The Morphean Overmind reached out telepathically to the human fleet, trying to establish contact, trying to understand. What they found in the human commanders' minds made them recoil. There was no rage, no blind anger, only cold calculation, only absolute determination, only a simple thought repeated over and over. "You were warned," Elder Cathras called an emergency session. "We must stop this. We must negotiate before the war spreads," but it was too late. The human fleet was already moving to the next target and the next and the next. Admiral Stone had made his decision. The galaxy would learn what it meant to kill humans. The galaxy would learn that warnings were not suggestions. The Krell Collective had stood for 10,000 years. They had conquered 50 star systems. They had fought and won 100 wars. Their military was feared across the galaxy. In 20 days, humanity destroyed it all. Admiral Stone commanded the human fleet from his flagship, the UTNS Retribution. It was a massive ship, built in secret shipyards far from Earth. The Council had no idea it existed. They had no idea any of this existed. Stone stood on the bridge, watching as his fleet moved from one Krell system to the next. Each system fell the same way. Human ships arrived with perfect coordination. They destroyed military targets with overwhelming force. They left civilian populations untouched. This was not random violence. This was surgical precision. "Admiral, the Krell Third Fleet has been located," his tactical officer reported. "They're fortifying the Crescent system. 250 warships plus orbital defenses. How long until we arrive?" 4 hours, sir," Stone nodded. 4 hours for the Krell to prepare. It would not matter. It never mattered. The Krell were fighting yesterday's war with yesterday's technology. Humanity was fighting tomorrow's war. In the Crescent system, Krell Fleet Commander Jirax prepared his defense. He had heard what happened at Theta Remnant. He had read the reports, watched the sensor logs. He knew what was coming. "All ships maintain formation," he ordered. "We will not scatter. We will not panic. We are Krell. We have fought for 10,000 years. These humans are children pretending to be warriors." But Jirax did not believe his own words. He had seen the footage. He had seen how the human ships moved, how their weapons struck, how they coordinated. This was not pretend. This was real, and it was terrifying. The humans arrived exactly when they said they would. 4 hours after the warning. Their ships emerged from FTL in perfect formation, already moving at combat speed. Jirax gave the order to fire. 250 Krell warships unleashed everything they had. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy beams lanced through the darkness. Kinetic weapons accelerated to relativistic speeds. The human fleet activated their defense systems. Drones shot out in swarms, intercepting missiles. Point defense lasers destroyed incoming projectiles. The ships themselves weaved through the attack pattern with moves that should have torn them apart. But they held together, their internal dampening systems protecting the crews from forces that would have killed anyone else. Then the humans returned fire. Jirax had thought he understood destruction. He was wrong. The human weapons were not designed to damage ships. They were designed to erase them. A Krell battleship was hit by something the sensors could not identify. The ship simply came apart. Its molecular bonds dissolved, its atoms scattered. What was that? Jirax demanded. "Unknown, Commander. Some kind of exotic particle weapon. It bypasses shields completely." Another weapon type appeared. Missiles that released swarms of smaller munitions, each one intelligent, each one hunting a different target. They did not hit the heavily armored parts of Krell ships. They found weak points, engine intakes, sensor arrays, life support systems. They struck with precision that made every shot count. Jirax watched his fleet die, not slowly, not in a heroic last stand. Quickly, efficiently, like a surgeon removing diseased tissue, the human fleet moved through the Krell formation, destroying ships faster than his officers could report the losses. "Commander, we must retreat." "No," Jirax said. "We were ordered to hold this system. We cannot hold what we cannot defend. The fleet is breaking." Jirax looked at the tactical display. His tactical officer was right. Ships were fleeing, breaking formation, trying to escape. The human fleet pursued them all. Not a single Krell ship escaped the system. Jirax's own vessel was one of the last to fall. A human ship approached, massive and silent. It fired once. Jirax's ship split in half. As he died, his last thought was simple. We should have listened. Across Krell space, the pattern repeated. Human fleets struck military targets and nothing else. Shipyards were destroyed. Weapons factories were reduced to rubble. Orbital defense platforms were shattered. But civilian stations were left alone. Colony worlds were not bombarded. The humans were not here to commit genocide. They were here to remove the Krell's ability to make war. On the 10th day, something happened that made the entire galaxy stop and watch. The Morphean Overmind, one of the most powerful telepathic entities in known space, reached out to make contact with Admiral Stone. The Morpheans had never been involved in physical conflict. They did not need to be. Their telepathic abilities could crush minds, could drive entire species to madness. They were feared and respected in equal measure. The Overmind touched Stone's thoughts, expecting to find rage, expecting to find bloodlust. Instead, it found something far more frightening. It found cold logic. It found a human who had done the math, who had calculated the cost of peace versus the cost of war, and had chosen war because it was actually cheaper in the long run. The Overmind spoke directly into Stone's mind. Admiral, this conflict must end. The Krell Collective is broken. Further violence serves no purpose. Stone thought his response, knowing the Overmind would hear it. The Krell Collective attacked our civilians. They killed 12,000 people. They thought we would do nothing. We are teaching them and the entire galaxy that actions have consequences. You have made your point. The galaxy understands, does it? Or will they forget in 100 years? Will some other species look at humanity and think we are easy targets? The Overmind paused. It dove deeper into Stone's mind, past his surface thoughts, past his immediate plans. It saw the strategy behind the war. It saw that every action was calculated not just for today, but for the next 1,000 years. Stone was not just winning a war. He was building a reputation that would protect humanity for generations. The Overmind withdrew from Stone's mind, shaken. It reported back to the Galactic Council. The humans cannot be stopped with words. They are committed to their course. But there is something you must understand. They are not monsters. They have rules. They target only military assets. They spare civilians. This is not genocide. This is correction. Elder Cathros did not know what to do. The Council had dealt with wars before. They had mediated conflicts, imposed sanctions, sometimes even sent peacekeeping forces. But this was different. The human fleet was too powerful to stop. The Krell had been one of the strongest military forces in the galaxy, and they were being destroyed. On the 15th day, the Krell government sent a formal surrender request to Admiral Stone. They offered reparations. They offered to withdraw from all disputed territories. They offered complete disarmament. Stone read their message. Then he sent back a single word. No. The Krell were confused. They had surrendered. What more could the humans want? The answer came from Ambassador Chen, who appeared before the Galactic Council for the first time since the war began. She looked tired but satisfied. The Krell Collective offered surrender, she told the assembled species. We declined. Do you know why? Because surrender implies that this was a war between equals. It was not. This was a punishment. The Krell broke the law. They killed our people. They ignored our warnings. Now they will face the full consequences of their actions. What more do you want? Elder Cathros asked, and for the first time there was no condescension in its voice. Only fear. We want the Krell military destroyed completely. Every warship, every weapon, every soldier. We want their shipyards dismantled. We want them to be unable to threaten anyone ever again. Only then will we discuss terms. That will take years, a council member protested. No, Chen said calmly. It will take 5 more days. Admiral Stone is very efficient. She was right. On the 20th day of the war, human fleets surrounded the Krell homeworld. It was the heart of their civilization, protected by their last remaining defenses. 500 warships, thousands of orbital weapons platforms, planetary shields that could withstand anything. The humans did not care. They began the siege with systematic precision. One by one the defenses fell. Ships were destroyed. Platforms were neutralized. The planetary shields were collapsed using weapons that should not have been possible. Commander Zethax, who had survived the destruction of Theta Remnant, was now defending his homeworld. He stood in the Planetary Defense Center, watching as humanity dismantled everything his species had built. We should not have laughed at them, he said quietly to himself. They warned us. They really warned us. The human fleet stopped just short of bombarding the planet. Instead, Admiral Stone sent a message. It was broadcast to every screen, every communicator, every device on the Krell homeworld. People of the Krell Collective, Your military attacked our civilians without provocation. They thought we would do nothing. They were wrong. Your military is now destroyed. Your ability to make war is gone. But we are not here to destroy you. We are here to teach you. Humans do not forget. We do not forgive unprovoked attacks on our people. This was not cruelty. This was consequence. Remember it well, the image changed. It showed the attack on New Horizon. It showed the 12,000 dead. It showed the Vigilant being destroyed. Then it showed the faces of the victims. Every single one. Their names, their ages, their families. These people did nothing to you, Stone's voice continued. They were living their lives. They were peaceful. You killed them because 3 months after the war began, Admiral Stone stood before the Galactic Council for the first time. The chamber was different now. The elder species no longer sat on elevated platforms looking down on those who came before them. They had, quietly and without announcement, moved to the same level as everyone else. It was a small change, but it meant everything. Ambassador Chen stood beside Stone. She had been right about everything. She had warned them, and they had laughed. Now they listened. Honorable Council, Stone began, and unlike Chen, he meant the word with genuine respect. The war with the Krell Collective is over. Their military has been destroyed. Their ability to make war has been eliminated. Our terms are simple and non-negotiable. Elder Cathras, whose crystalline body seemed dimmer than before, spoke carefully. What are your terms, Admiral? First, the Galactic Council Charter will be reformed. New laws will be written that protect all species against territorial aggression. These laws will have teeth. Any species that violates them will face immediate consequences, enforced not by debate but by action. There was silence. The Council had never been challenged like this, but they had also never seen a military force like humanity's. They nodded. Second, Stone continued, all disputes between species will be subject to mandatory third-party arbitration. No more dismissing complaints because one species is older or stronger than another. The law applies equally or it applies to no one. More nods. The elder species were learning humility. Third, the Krell Collective will pay reparations for New Horizon. Every family that lost someone will be compensated. Every structure that was destroyed will be rebuilt, using Krell resources. They do not have the resources, a council member said quietly. You destroyed their economy. Then they will work for 50 years to pay the debt, Stone said flatly. The same 50 years that humanity will occupy their territory to ensure compliance. 50 years? Elder Cathras sounded shocked. That is a full Krell generation. It is also how long humanity has been in space, Chen added. Long enough for them to remember. Long enough that when our forces finally leave, the Krell will never forget what happens when you kill human civilians. The council looked at each other. Finally, Elder Cathras spoke. We agree to all terms. The charter will be reformed. The Krell will pay reparations. But Admiral, Ambassador, we must ask, what is to stop humanity from becoming what the Krell were? What is to stop you from using your military power to dominate others? Stone was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Krell homeworld. Human ships still surrounded it, but something else was happening on the surface. This, Stone said simply. The display zoomed in. Human soldiers were on the ground, but they were not occupying cities. They were building. Hospitals were going up in areas that had been damaged by the fighting. Schools were being constructed. Infrastructure was being repaired. Human engineers worked alongside Krell civilians, teaching them, helping them. We are not here to rule the Krell, Stone explained. We are here to ensure they can never threaten us again. But we are also here to show them a different way. Humanity knows what it is to be underestimated. We know what it is to fight for survival. We do not want to dominate the galaxy. We want to be part of it as equals. He paused, looking at each council member. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves. We will protect our people. And if anyone attacks us again, we will respond with overwhelming force. This is not a threat. This is a promise. We do not bluff. We do not posture. When humans give a warning, you should listen. The council accepted this. What choice did they have? Humanity had proven itself, not just as a military power, but as a species that kept its word. They had said they would respond to the Krell attack. They did. They had said they would not harm civilians. They did not. They had said warnings matter. They had proven it. On the Krell homeworld, something unexpected was happening. The Krell civilians, who had been terrified of the human occupation, were beginning to understand something. The humans were not monsters. They were strict, yes. They were unwavering in their demands. But they were also fair. A young Krell named Takik worked at one of the new hospitals being built. She approached a human soldier who was helping with the construction. He was a big man, scarred from the war, but his eyes were kind. "Why are you helping us?" Takik asked. "Your people killed our military. You destroyed everything we built. Why not just leave us to suffer?" The soldier set down the beam he was carrying. "What's your name?" Takik, let me ask you something. Did you attack New Horizon?" "No, I am a teacher, not a soldier." "Exactly. You didn't kill anyone. Your people, the civilians, they didn't kill anyone. Your military did. Your government did. We are not monsters. We do not punish the innocent for the crimes of the guilty. But you destroyed our military completely. You showed no mercy." The soldier's face hardened. "No, we didn't. Your military killed 12,000 of our civilians. They destroyed a patrol ship with 47 crew. They thought we would do nothing. We showed them exactly what happens when you ignore a warning. But you, Takik, you did nothing wrong. So we are here to help you rebuild." Takik thought about this. "Your people are strange. You are so kind now, but you were so ruthless in war." "We are not strange," the soldier said. "We are just honest. We said we would defend our people. We did. We said we would not harm civilians. We have not. We keep our promises, all of them. The good ones and the bad ones." Word of this conversation spread across the Krell homeworld. Other humans said similar things. Slowly, fear turned to understanding. The Krell began to see humans not as monsters but as something else. Something that kept its word. Something that could be trusted as long as you did not betray that trust. In the Galactic Council chambers, the Reformation was complete. New laws were written. Old assumptions were challenged. The elder species who had ruled for so long began to understand that age did not equal wisdom. Power did not equal right. Ambassador Chen delivered humanity's final statement to the Council. "We came to the stars in peace. We wanted to explore, to trade, to learn. We still want those things. But we have learned something too. We have learned that peace only works when everyone respects it. When someone breaks that peace, there must be consequences. Real consequences, not just words." She looked at the assembled species. "To those who want peace, humanity offers friendship. We will trade with you. We will share knowledge with you. We will stand with you against threats. But to those who threaten us, to those who think humanity is weak because we prefer peace, we offer only one thing. A warning. Take it seriously. Learn from the Krell's mistake. Will humanity withdraw from Krell space after 50 years? Elder Kathros asked. Will you truly leave when the time comes? Yes, Chen said without hesitation. We said 50 years. It will be 50 years, not one day more. When we make a promise, we keep it. That is what makes us different. We do not lie. We do not manipulate. We tell you exactly what we will do, and then we do it. It is very simple. The council adjourned. The galaxy began to adjust to its new reality. Humanity was no longer the naive newcomer. They were a power, a force to be respected and, if necessary, feared. Trade routes reopened. Human merchants returned to council space, but now they traveled with military escorts, and those escorts were not for show. Everyone knew what human warships could do. 10 years passed. Then 20. Then 30. Slowly, the Krell Collective rebuilt, not as a military power but as something else. They became traders, engineers, builders. Under human supervision, they learned different ways to be strong. They learned that power came not just from weapons but from creation. On the 40th year of the occupation, Commander Zethax, now old and gray, met with the human occupation commander. They stood in the rebuilt capital city of the Krell homeworld, looking at the busy streets below. I was there, Zethax said quietly. I was at Theta Remnant. I fired the first shots at your patrol ship. I gave the order to bombard New Horizon. The human commander, a woman named General Martinez, nodded. I know. Your name is in our records. Why am I not in prison? Why am I allowed to walk free? Because you were a soldier following orders. Your government made the choice to attack us. You were just the weapon they used. Zethax was quiet for a long time. We should have listened to Ambassador Chen. We should have withdrawn when she warned us. Yes, you should have them. Would you really have let us go? If we had withdrawn, would there have been peace? Martinez looked at him. Absolutely. We meant every word. If the Krell had respected our borders, none of this would have happened. We would still be trading partners. Your people would not have suffered, but you made a choice, and choices have consequences. I have spent 40 years thinking about that day, Zithak said. Every day I remember the humans on New Horizon. I remember ordering the attack. I remember thinking they were weak, that they would do nothing. I was so wrong. Learn from it, Martinez said. Teach your people. Make sure the next generation understands. Humans do not pardon. We remember our dead. But we also remember our friends. Choose which one you want to be. On the 50th year, exactly as PR.